Most women think men fall in love with what they see, but the truth, they fall in love with what they feel when they're around you. And more often than not, that feeling is shaped by just a few carefully chosen words. Let me ask you something. Have you ever said something completely innocent and suddenly the vibe changed? He pulled away, went quiet, or just seemed off. Or maybe you've been on a date thinking it's going well, but you can't seem to create that deeper spark, the kind that makes him crave more of you. It's not your fault. Most of us were never taught how to talk to men in a way that actually builds attraction. We were told to be confident, act mysterious, or worse, just be yourself. But here's the raw truth. Attraction isn't accidental, it's conversational. And the words you choose can either open his heart or close it shut. In this video, I'm going to give you a set of phrases, real, natural, magnetic, that have the power to shift how men feel in your presence. They don't sound cheesy, they don't require game playing, and they're based on actual psychological triggers that make a man feel emotionally safe, intrigued, and deeply drawn to you. Stick with me until the end, because the final phrase I share, it's the one that quietly makes a man obsess, in the best way, without even realizing why. Let's dive into how just a few simple words can unlock the connection you've been craving. Have you ever said something to a man, something completely normal, and suddenly his energy changed? Maybe he seemed distracted, less responsive, or just distant. It leaves you wondering, what did I say wrong? But the real question is, what didn't you say right? What most women don't realize is that men respond to emotional undercurrents, not just words. Your tone, your timing, the intention behind what you say. All of that hits him on a subconscious level. He may not be able to explain why he feels drawn to you, but the pull is real. And it almost always begins with how you speak. Attraction is not just about being pretty or playing hard to get. That might get his attention, but it won't hold his heart. What creates deep, lasting attraction is when a man feels emotionally safe and seen in your presence. And that starts with words, the right ones. See, most men are emotionally starved. They're taught to be strong, silent, and unaffected. So when you use language that reflects empathy, insight, or soft admiration, it lights something up in him that he probably doesn't even know he's craving. It's rare, and that rarity, it's magnetic. Even the smallest phrase, like "I love the way your mind works," can go further than any flirtatious line. Why? Because it acknowledges who he is, not just what he does. You're not just talking to him, you're speaking into him. That's where attraction deepens. When a woman speaks with emotional clarity, grounded warmth, and just a hint of curiosity, something unlocks. He feels safe, respected, valued, and he starts associating you with those feelings. That's when he begins to want to be around you, not out of obligation, but desire. So no, you don't need to impress him with clever lines or charm. You need to speak in a way that makes him feel alive and connect. In the next section, I'll give you a phrase that does exactly that and show you why it works so powerfully, even if you're just getting to know him. When it comes to creating an instant connection with a man, most women think they need to be witty, charming, or say something impressive. But the truth is, real connection happens in the simplest moments and with the simplest words. The first phrase I want to give you may sound subtle, but when delivered with the right energy, it creates a moment of emotional intimacy that most men rarely experience. The phrase is, "That actually makes a lot of sense." Now you might be thinking, really? That's it? But stay with me, because this phrase, when used genuinely, is one of the fastest ways to make a man feel understood. And understanding is one of the deepest emotional needs we all have. For men especially, being heard without being judged is incredibly rare. They're often expected to be logical, decisive, or emotionally distant. So when a woman responds in a way that validates his thought process, not agrees blindly, but truly acknowledges him, it cuts through the surface and hits something real. Imagine he's sharing an idea, a past experience, or even something he struggled with. Instead of trying to fix it, analyze it, or shift the conversation to your own experience, you pause, look him in the eyes, and say, "That actually makes a lot of sense." You've just told him that his inner world is valid, that you're not just listening, you're connecting. That one moment builds trust. It says, "I see you, I get you. You don't have to defend yourself here." And here's the magic. When a man feels emotionally safe, he opens up, not in a performative way, but in a genuine, vulnerable way. He begins to share more. He leans in, his guard comes down, and you didn't have to pry or push, you simply gave him permission to be himself. This phrase also has an elegant balance. It doesn't come across as flattery. It's not about making him feel superior. It's about meeting him where he is, emotionally and mentally, and offering quiet validation. And when you do that, you become the exception. You become the person he wants to talk to, when things are real, not just when things are fun. Now here's something powerful to keep in mind. Timing matters. You don't just throw this phrase out randomly. Use it when he's opened a little window into his thoughts, when he's not just chatting, but sharing. That's when the connection is most fragile and most meaningful. So next time he tells you what he's thinking, whether it's about his goals, his past, his beliefs, or even something casual like his favorite way to unwind, don't rush to respond. Slow down, let it land. Then say, that actually makes a lot of sense, and mean it. That moment of recognition will stay with him long after the conversation ends. Up next, I'll share a phrase that's designed to spark his curiosity and make him think about you long after you've walked away. If you want to create real attraction, not just momentary attention, you have to spark something deeper in a man. Curiosity. When a man is curious about you, he thinks about you when you're not around. He replays your words. He wonders what you're doing, how you think, and what's underneath your surface. And when curiosity is alive, so is the attraction. There's a specific phrase that's incredibly simple, yet instantly intriguing. And it's this: most people don't really get that about me. That's it. And yet, it's one of the most powerful ways to create open loops in his mind, psychological gaps that he'll want to fill. You can use this phrase after sharing something personal, reflective, or even playful about yourself. The moment you follow it with "most people don't really get that about me," you subtly tell him there's more to you than meets the eye. You're hinting that you have depth, that you've been misunderstood, and that he now has a unique opportunity to understand what others couldn't. Men are naturally wired to solve puzzles, to seek clarity, and to pursue what feels just slightly out of reach. This phrase taps directly into that instinct. It suggests that there's a layer of you he hasn't seen yet, and that only a certain kind of person gets access to it. And if he's interested at all, he'll want to be that person. Here's how it might sound in conversation. Let's say you're talking about your love for something random, like staying up to watch thunderstorms, or the way you overanalyze movie endings, or even how fiercely loyal you are to people once they've earned your trust. You follow that with a soft, almost casual, "most people don't really get that about me." You let it hang in the air for a second. That pause, that's where his attention sharpens. His brain starts asking, why don't people get that? What else haven't I seen in her? In that moment, you become more than just someone he's talking to. You become someone he wants to figure out. And when a man wants to understand you, he stays engaged. He listens more closely. He leans in, emotionally and physically. The best part is that this phrase also carries a vulnerability to it. You're not shouting, "Look how mysterious I am." You're gently revealing that you've felt misunderstood, that there's something inside you worth discovering, if someone cares enough to look. That kind of quiet confidence, paired with just a touch of emotional openness, is incredibly magnetic. So next time you're in a moment where you're sharing even a small piece of yourself, try it. Let that phrase slip in naturally, with warmth. "Most people don't really get that about me." And then, let the silence do the rest. In the next section, I'll show you a phrase that makes a man feel not just curious but truly seen, in a way he rarely experiences. One of the most underestimated forms of attraction is emotional understanding. It goes beyond compliments, beyond chemistry, and straight into the heart of connection. When a man feels deeply understood by a woman, not just listened to, but truly felt, it changes how he sees her. She's no longer just someone he's talking to. She becomes someone he trusts, someone he wants to open up to. There's a powerful phrase that unlocks this emotional doorway. It's simple, it's genuine, and when used at the right moment, it can create a rush of connection that men rarely feel, especially with someone they're just getting to know. The phrase is, "I can imagine that must have felt like a lot." What makes this so powerful isn't just the words, it's the emotional safety you create with them. This phrase works because it shows empathy without assuming. It's not about fixing anything. It's not about giving advice or offering your opinion. It's simply holding space for him to feel seen. Here's how it works. Let's say he's telling you about a challenge he went through, maybe something from his past, something at work, or even just something that clearly meant a lot to him. Most people respond with solutions, with stories of their own, or with surface level sympathy like that sucks or wow, that's crazy. But when you pause, take a breath and say, I can imagine that must have felt like a lot, it hits differently. He doesn't hear judgment. He doesn't feel the need to prove or defend anything. What he hears is resonance. What he feels is peace. You're telling him, I get that you went through something. I don't need all the details. I don't need to fix it. I'm just here and I feel it with you. And that's rare. That's the kind of emotional depth that opens a man's heart without even trying. Most men don't walk through the world feeling emotionally understood. They often carry weight silently, even in relationships. So when someone shows up who doesn't rush to fill the silence, who simply acknowledges the emotion behind what's being said, she becomes unforgettable. And here's the thing, you don't have to use this phrase during a dramatic confession. It works in subtle ways too. He could be talking about how stressed he's been at work, or how he's had to handle something with his family. Just lean in gently, look him in the eye, and say, I can imagine that must have felt like a lot. That moment of presence will speak louder than any flirtation ever could. This phrase communicates care. It signals that you're not just hearing his words, you're tuning into the emotion underneath them. And when he feels that level of understanding, he instinctively wants more of it, more of you. Next, we'll explore a phrase that shifts his emotional defenses and invites real openness, the kind that deepens not just attraction, but emotional intimacy. Not everything you say builds attraction. In fact, some things you say can quietly start tearing it down without you even realizing it. And what's tricky is, most of these phrases don't sound harsh or mean on the surface. They sound normal, casual, even well-intended. But to a man, they trigger a feeling of resistance, a subtle wall that starts to form between you and him. These are the phrases that push him away. And the frustrating part is, no one really talks about them. One of the most common ones is, why would you do that? Now, you may not mean it critically, you may be genuinely asking, but to a man, especially in the early stages of connection, that phrase often feels like judgment. It puts him on the defensive, like he has to explain or justify himself. Instead of pulling him closer, it makes him second guess being open with you. A better way? Reframe with curiosity instead of critique. Something like, that's interesting. What made you go that route? Still curious, but say. Another one to watch for is you always or you never. These phrases tend to pop up in moments of frustration, but they carry a heavy emotional charge. Even if what you're saying feels true, using always or never labels him. It boxes him in. It turns a moment into a pattern, and no one wants to feel like they're being measured against past mistakes or locked into a version of themselves they can't change. Attraction is fluid, not replace those absolutes with I've noticed lately, or sometimes it feels like. It creates space for growth, not blame. Here's another sneaky one. You're just like my ex. Even if it's meant as a compliment, don't go there. Comparisons instantly take him out of the present moment and put him in a mental competition with someone else from your past. It doesn't feel good, and it definitely doesn't build trust. If you see something in him that reminds you of something familiar, share what it makes you feel, not who it makes you think of. And finally, this one might surprise you. I don't need a man. Look, it's perfectly okay to be independent, strong and self-sufficient. That's not the issue. But when that phrase is said with edge or defensiveness, it doesn't communicate strength. It communicates a closed door, a subtle rejection of masculine energy. What he hears is, there's no place for you in my life. Instead, show that you choose connection, not that you need it. That's way more powerful. The bottom line is this: words carry energy. It's not just what you say, it's how it lands. Certain phrases may seem small, but they plant seeds of either closeness or distance. And when your goal is to build attraction that's deep and lasting, you have to choose language that invites, not pushes away. In the next part, I'll give you a phrase that opens his heart and creates emotional safety, so he wants to share even more. There's a quiet moment in every connection where something deeper wants to happen. You can feel it. The way the conversation slows down, the way his tone softens, the way he hesitates before answering. These are the moments where emotional openness becomes possible. But whether that door opens or closes often depends on you. Not because it's your job to make him open up, but because the way you respond can either make him feel safe or silently shut down. Most men don't grow up in environments that encourage emotional vulnerability. Even the most self-aware, emotionally intelligent men often hesitate when it comes to revealing what they truly feel. Why? Because in their world, opening up usually meant risk being seen as weak, dramatic, or too much. So when they do start to open that door, even just a little, your response is everything. There's a phrase that gently invites him deeper. It's not invasive, it's not demanding, and it doesn't pressure him to be someone he's not. But it does create a soft space where real connection can unfold. The phrase is, you don't have to share if you're not ready, but if you ever do, I'm here. This phrase is powerful because it balances two key things: emotional permission and emotional presence. You're not prying, you're not pushing, you're simply letting him know that you can hold space, that if and when he chooses to share more of himself, you'll meet him with understanding, not judgment. That kind of emotional safety is incredibly rare, and it's unbelievably attractive. Men crave that space more than they admit, a place where they can stop performing, stop protecting, and just be. When you offer that, not with pressure but with calm confidence, something shifts. He starts to trust you. He starts to feel like you're not just someone to talk to, but someone to reveal things to. And once a man starts opening up, emotionally, he begins to bond. Here's the beautiful part. This phrase works even when he's not talking about something deep. Maybe he brushes off a topic, laughs uncomfortably, or says, I don't really talk about that stuff. That's the perfect time to gently respond. You don't have to share if you're not ready, but if you ever do, I'm here. And then no pressure, just present. What you're doing in that moment is quietly rewriting the script he's used to. You're showing him that openness doesn't equal exposure, it equals connection. And once he feels that, he doesn't just want to open up, he wants to keep opening up to you. When you speak in a way that respects his emotional timing, you create a relationship dynamic that feels safe, grounded, and real. And in that kind of space, attraction doesn't fade, it deepens. Coming up next, I'll share the fifth and final phrase, one that awakens something primal in a man and makes him feel protective, connected, and emotionally invested in you. There's a deep primal part of every man that wants to protect the people he cares about. It's wired into his biology. The instinct to guard, support, and stand strong for someone he feels connected to. But in modern relationships, that instinct isn't always obvious or easy to tap into. The way you speak, the energy you carry, and the subtle cues you give can either awaken that protective, loving side or leave it dormant. The fifth phrase I'm sharing with you today is designed specifically to trigger that instinct. It's simple but profound, and when used authentically, it makes a man feel needed, not because you're helpless, but because you're allowing him to be his best self for you. The phrase is, I feel so safe with you. Those 4 words are incredibly powerful. When you say them sincerely, you're not just giving a compliment. You're opening a door to a deeper emotional bond. You're telling him that you trust him, that you rely on him in a way that feels natural and freeing. And trust me, when a man feels trusted like that, his protective instincts ignite. This phrase doesn't put pressure on him to be a superhero or fix everything. Instead, it affirms that his presence and care make a real difference in your life. It's an invitation for him to step into his strength in a way that feels loving, not burdensome. And that's magnetic. Think about it. Men want to feel like they matter. They want to know their efforts, big or small, are appreciated and impactful. When you express that you feel safe with him, you're validating his role in your emotional world. You're saying, you make a difference. That kind of emotional validation fuels his desire to protect and nurture. It also helps break down walls. Men often hide vulnerability behind stoicism or strength because they fear rejection or judgment. But when you tell him you feel safe, you're creating a sanctuary, a place where he can lower those defenses. And that leads to deeper intimacy. Using this phrase works best when paired with eye contact and a calm, warm tone. The energy behind the words matters just as much as the words themselves. When you look at him sincerely and say, I feel so safe with you, you're communicating a message far beyond language, one of acceptance, trust, and emotional connection. Remember, attraction isn't about control or game. It's about creating spaces where both of you can be your authentic selves, feeling supported and valued. This phrase is a gentle way to let him know he has a unique place in your life, a place where his natural instincts can flourish. So next time you feel connected, try saying, I feel so safe with you. Watch how it shifts the energy, deepens your bond, and triggers his loving, protective nature in a way that's both powerful and tender. Up next, I'll wrap up with a quick recap of all 5 phrases and show you how to weave them naturally into any conversation. Knowing powerful phrases is one thing, but using them smoothly in real conversations is where the magic really happens. It's easy to feel awkward or like you're overthinking when you try to insert new language into a natural flow, especially when the stakes feel high, like when you're talking to someone you want to attract. But the truth is, practicing these phrases doesn't have to be complicated or forced. It's about creating moments where they feel authentic and genuine. Moments where you're fully present, listening and responding from a place of curiosity and care. The first step is to internalize these phrases, not just memorize them. Think about what each phrase really means and how it connects to your own feelings and experiences. When you understand why a phrase works, how it creates safety, curiosity, or connection, it becomes easier to say it naturally because it comes from a real place inside you. Practice saying the phrases aloud when you're alone, maybe in front of a mirror or recording yourself. This builds comfort and confidence so they don't feel foreign when the moment comes. Next, start small. You don't have to use all 5 phrases in one conversation. That can feel overwhelming or unnatural. Instead, focus on one phrase at a time. Maybe today your goal is simply to notice when someone is sharing something personal and gently respond with, "That actually makes a lot of sense." Or if you hear something interesting or unique about someone, try slipping in, "Most people don't really get that about me." Or even adapt it for yourself to spark curiosity. The key is to make these moments feel spontaneous, not rehearsed. Another powerful tip is to listen actively. Deep listening is what opens the door for these phrases to work. When you're truly focused on the other person, not just waiting to talk, you pick up on the emotional cues that signal when a phrase might fit perfectly. Maybe he's talking about a challenge, a passion, or a personal story. Instead of jumping in with your own story or advice, try one of the phrases that invites understanding or emotional openness. This shows you're really tuned in, and that creates connection. It's also important to stay flexible. Every conversation is different, and every person responds differently. Pay attention to his reactions, his body language, tone, and openness. If a phrase feels too heavy or too light for the moment, adapt it or save it for later. The goal is to build rapport and trust, not force a script. Finally, be patient with yourself. Like any new skill, mastering these phrases takes time and practice. You won't get it perfect every time, and that's okay. What matters most is your intention to connect, to understand, and to build genuine attraction through thoughtful communication. Over time, as you integrate these phrases naturally into your conversations, you'll notice how your interactions deepen, how he responds more openly, and how attraction grows in a way that feels effortless. So start practicing today, with friends, in casual chats, or even in your own reflections. Let these phrases become a natural part of how you communicate, and watch how they transform your relationship. We've covered a lot today. 5 simple but powerful phrases that can transform the way you talk to men and build deep, authentic attraction. Each phrase is more than just words. They're tools that create emotional safety, spark curiosity, and invite connection on a level that goes beyond surface conversations. But before we finish, I want to leave you with a final thought that ties everything together. Attraction isn't about tricks or manipulation. It's about being real, being present, and choosing language that opens doors instead of closing them. When you speak from a place of genuine curiosity and care, these phrases become a natural extension of who you are, not something you have to force or fake. The real magic happens when your words align with your energy and intention. Now, as a bonus, here's one last phrase to keep in your back pocket. It's subtle but incredibly effective, especially when you want to deepen a moment or leave a lasting impression. The phrase is, "There's something about you that I can't quite put my finger on, and I like that." This phrase does 2 powerful things at once. First, it builds mystery and intrigue by acknowledging that he's unique in a way that's not easily defined. That alone sparks curiosity and makes him want to know what you're thinking. Second, it's a compliment wrapped in subtlety. You're telling him he's special without laying it on too thick, which keeps things playful and light. Use this phrase when you feel a spark but want to keep the connection open-ended, when you want to hint that there's more to discover, both about him and between you. It invites him to lean in, to show more of himself, and to wonder what it is you see that others might miss. Remember, deep attraction grows from emotional connection, trust, and the way you communicate. These phrases are your keys, but your authentic self is what turns those keys. Thank you so much for watching. If you found value in this video, please like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Which phrase resonated with you the most? I'd love to hear your experiences or any questions you have. And don't forget to subscribe for more tips on attraction, communication, and building meaningful relationships. Until next time, keep speaking from your heart and watch the connections you create grow deeper every day.